Hansen Young is the most dominant prospect that nobody's talking about.
Said it, I'm golden. Told you I'm shining. Had to break through. Plan perfect timing. Giving no hands. Go get it. Radix the ruler. Can't with them peasants. Want to win pleasant. Envy the essence.
The Miami Heat picked 20th overall in the upcoming 2025 NBA draft. And so far in my draft series, I've discussed Liam McNeely, Rasheed Fleming, Noah Senge, Will Riley, Nick Clifford, Walter Clayton Jr., Cedric Howard, Nolan Troy, Ben Soft, Jay Sortis, Carter Bryant, Thomas Thorpe, Danny Wolf, Maxime Marion, Adu Thero, and now Hansen Young. I want to give a shout out to absolutely nobody, because not a single person in my comments over the course of the last couple of months where we've been talking about everyone in this draft, not one person mentioned Hansen Young, because this was my undiscovered gem, my hidden prospect, my biggest sleeper, because I saw a couple of clips of this guy in the NBA draft combine and he looked special. Looked like a unicorn, a massive one, because he's huge. Seriously, I fell in love when I saw him do all these flashy passes, being a dominant rim deterrence, splashing threes, and it was very clear to me that he has a ton of potential, and I think he could be a great trade back candidate for the Miami Heat, because very clearly I don't think he'll be a first round guy, maybe an early second round guy. So I'm not suggesting the Heat use their 20th pick on him, but if they trade back a little bit, he could be an absolute steal. Also at the draft combine, we got his official measurements where he came in at 7'1" without shoes, meaning that when he's in the league, he'll probably be listed at 7'2" or 7'3", and he also did have a 7'3" wingspan at the combine and weighed 253 pounds. So the guy is an absolute unit at only 19 years old. Imagine being that big at that young in age. He's truly a dominant physical force who also has some skill as well, and we'll get into that. But he will actually be turning 20 the day after the first round of the NBA draft, which is actually on day 2 of the draft. And considering he's likely to be a second round pick, it'll be pretty cool because he will be drafted on his birthday. But obviously 20 years old is still very, very young, so there's a lot of room to grow. He did play 2 seasons in the Chinese Basketball Association, that's the CBA, for a team that's called, I believe they're pronounced the Qingdao Eagles. And actually on that same roster with him, there was Heat legend Jordan Mickey. Y'all remember Mickey, the one time he hit that buzzer beater 3, I think it was, in a preseason game against the Wizards? I'll never forget Jordan Mickey. You were beloved by Heat Nation. And also on his team was Keita Bates-Diop, who had some pretty nice moments throughout his 6-season NBA career. So Hansen Yang played with a couple of former NBA players across the entire CBA right now. There's a handful of other decent former NBA players. You can find guys like Eric Bledsoe, Jaren Solinger, Will Barton, Trey Burke, Willie Cauley-Stein, Montrezl Harrell, Marquise Chris, Darius Baisley, and everybody's favorite, Boban Marjanovic. So some pretty decent former NBA talent who was in the league relatively recently. So the level of competition over in the CBA is honestly not that bad in terms of, international talent. They've had many other NBA players throughout the years, with the most notable guy probably being Tracy McGrady, a washed up Tracy McGrady nonetheless. It was actually the year before he joined the San Antonio Spurs. If y'all remember when the Spurs played the Heat in the finals, McGrady never came off the bench, but he was technically on that Spurs finals team in 2013, which lost to the Miami Heat. But in his final season with the Qingdao Golden Eagles, Hansen Yang just put up some dominating numbers where he averaged almost 17 points per game, about 11 rebounds, got you 3 assists, and almost 3 blocks, and did all of that while shooting 59% from the field, which you better shoot that good if you're that tall. Now, the three-point percentage is not great, 33% from the field, but he was shooting 1 a game. And to me personally, if you're 7'1", 250, and you're shooting a 3 a game at 33%, that's cool with me, because at the very least, it shows some potential. It shows some willingness to shoot, and I do think that's another thing that makes him a very, very intriguing prospect. The free throw percentage is below average. He was at 67% last year on 5 attempts. So not bad volume, okay volume for a younger guy. And the percentage is promising. You know, it's not like he's a 40% free throw shooter, a guy who has absolutely no mechanics whatsoever and they got to start from ground one working his shot up. No, that's not the case. He's not a great shooter, but I do think there's a solid base there to maybe make him a capable shooter one day. But if you don't trust these numbers from the CBA, he actually does have some other NBA experience. He played one preseason game, I think a year ago versus Charlotte Hornets, where he scored 12 points, had 4 boards, and assists. He had a block as well. And overall, he just looked very comfortable out there. He looked like he was adjusting to the game pretty quickly. And then also earlier this video, we mentioned his draft combine performance where he played a couple of 5-on-5 games. In his first day, he had 12 points, 1 rebounds, and 2 assists. But it was in his second day at the NBA draft combine where he really turned a lot of heads, where he had 11 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, and a block in 18 minutes. I do feel like he was rotating very well on the defensive end. I think he showed his high basketball IQ with some of the dimes that we saw. We're talking about some passes that went a little bit viral on Twitter. That's when I first heard about him. And just seeing someone do all of these things in that massive frame of his, it's just really intriguing and fun to watch as well. For that reason, he did kind of fly up the draft boards since then. Still second round pick in most places. NBA Draft.net had him at number 34. So the 4th pick in the second round. Bleacher Report had him the lowest at number 40. But the Yahoo Sports had him at 39. Tankathon had him at number 35. So all of these major publications, they have him pretty close to early in the second round. As far as some player comps that I saw for him, so you can kind of get an idea of what his play style is. One of them that I seen was Andrew Bogut, who a lot of people may have questions how well Bogut would play in today's NBA. Obviously, he was a great player, former number 1 overall pick, was on those great Warriors teams. I don't think he'd be as successful in today's NBA, but I do think there's still a role for guys like him just to get some spot minutes off the bench, be a defensive impact, get some rebounds, and just kind of be a big body to take up space when you need it. Because sometimes you need that type of guy. But that's not to say that Hansen Yang is Andrew Bogut. I've also seen some more versatile comparisons as well. I've seen Alperen Şengün. I've seen Nikola Vucevic. Obviously, if Yang can turn into one of those two guys, home run for a second-round pick. Obviously, Vucevic, multiple All-Star. Alperen Şengün made the All-Star team last year, looking like he'll be a very nice piece for the Houston Rockets' future. And you're talking about guys that can pass, they can shoot. Not the best defenders, but just offensively, they're a very great, versatile weapon to have. And I do think Hansen Yang has that kind of potential. I did see another website say what his floor versus ceiling could be, and I thought that was a pretty good comparison as well. They had his floor as Donovan Clingan, who was obviously the rookie for Portland last year, the big man out of UConn. And he had a nice rookie season. I mean, he was massive as well. He's like 7'1", probably weighs about the same as Hansen Yang. And he was able to use that size to be a great rim deterrent in his rookie season and also just be a dominant rebounder. And at the very least, I think that's what Hansen Yang can be, which is something every team can use. Now, the ceiling they had listed was Marc Gasol. And I think that's because in Gasol's prime, he was a very great defender, DPOY, although a fraudulent one. LeBron should have won it that year. But he's also an incredible passer, could shoot the ball a little bit. And I think that's a nice comparison for Hansen Yang. Like, at the absolute best, he could be Marc Gasol, which is something I think should get fans very excited. Now I want to talk about his strengths and weaknesses. I'll read the ones that Kevin O'Connor had listed in his article, but of course I'll share my personal opinion as well based off my independent research. The first strength they have listed is his post scoring. It says that Yang has a deep bag in the post with smooth footwork, primary moves in the field to make counters. Y'all know I got a foot fetish for the footwork. I love the big men with the footwork. Keem Olajuwon, my favorite player of all time. Thomas Sorber might be my favorite big in this draft because of his footwork as well. Of course, I love Kamehame Jaquez Jr. Really showed some great things footwork-wise in his rookie season. These are things that Hansen Yang has as well. But again, in just a much bigger body, which is something that excites me. It also says when he establishes deep post positioning, he's hard to stop inside. Duh, because he's a physical freak of nature. That's why Jaime Jaquez, as skilled as he is with his footwork, you can't always get to it because a lot of times he's posting up someone who may be bigger or stronger than him. That will never be the case with Hansen Yang. Unless like Boban Marjanovic comes back in the league, then that's like the only guy who might be bigger than him, right? In terms of width and strength. I guess guys like Donovan Kling and Zach Edey, even though Zach Edey, I saw some comparisons to Zach Edey to Hansen Yang. If y'all haven't seen the news, we will not be comparing Yang to Zach Edey. Not in this video. That man is crazy. Look it up. Anyways, it also says that this knack for scoring near the rim also translates to hitting layups off cuts and rolls. Yeah, I think outside of just post play, because obviously as a rookie, you might not expect Yang to get a bunch of post touches. He's more likely to be a play finisher in terms of a pick and roll, or maybe a sort of cleanup guy. And I do think he has the hands and kind of offensive IQ to be in the right spots off a pick and roll or to finish off an offensive rebound. He has nice touch inside. The next strength they have listed is his passing. And this is the part that really turns him from he's a nice big guy, interesting prospect, to a guy that can really be special in this league because his vision is incredible. Kevin O'Connor says that he has great passing vision for a big man, makes quick decisions, and generally delivers accurate passes. His Chinese team would even run offense through him. He could offer valuable playmaking out of handoffs. If you watch the highlights of this man, he'd be throwing some dimes. And I'm talking about some Magic Johnson, type of dimes, some no looks, finding guys off cuts, perfectly timing them so his teammate is right at the rim. It's just a beautiful thing to watch. Now, yes, while the Chinese team ran their offense through him, and in the NBA, he won't have as high a usage rate. He is a guy that can maybe work up to that point to where you can run an offense through him at times. The reason I like it so much is because, okay, let's say, the Heat, they don't do any moves. You got Tyler Hero, Bam. If those guys get, doubled or they'll draw the most of the defensive attention, then you can give Hansen Yang the ball on a mismatch in today's small ball world. Let him operate in the post a little bit. And then if he scores a couple times easily, well, they're going to now double or at least put some more defensive pressure on Hansen Yang, and he has the vision to now find Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and I just think his passing would allow them to really open up the offense. The last strength they have listed is his interior defense. It says that he was an excellent rim protector and rebounder in China, uses his massive frame to deter opponents and vacuum boards. He'll need to prove he can translate to NBA competition without falling into foul trouble. A lot of young bigs, they will get into foul trouble. It's just the thing that happens. You'll learn as you grow with the game. But yes, he's an elite interior defender in terms of his rim deterrence. As far as his weaknesses, it does say perimeter defense, and I'll even add on any defense outside of interior defense. He's not great in the pick and roll. That's a nice way of putting it. He'll actually get kind of abused in the pick and roll. He looks to be more of a drop coverage big, which I don't love in today's NBA because everybody can shoot so well. But he hasn't shown the ability to comfortably switch, lacks the foot speed to do a lot more. So you're mostly just looking at a guy who will be the rim deterrent, which is important because outside of Khalil Ware, the Heat don't have one of those. But you're going to be relying on guys like Bam Adebayo, potentially Davion Mitchell, the Hayward Highsmith types to help make up for the perimeter defense around Young, which I do think can work really well because he's great inside. And although he is a bit slower, I think his frame and length and wingspan makes up for that a little bit. We saw him block a couple of threes and jump shots in the draft combine. That's just because he doesn't have to recover super close to you in order to get his hand on the ball because that's how long he is. The next weakness they have is his shooting. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit. I don't think his form is great. But there's a base there to work with. We talked about the free throw percentage and stuff. I think maybe he can be a guy that, Boban, if you remember, he kind of turned into a capable guy the last couple years of his career. You're never going to rely on him to be a shooter, but he's not a guy that's causing negative spacing, and I think that's important. Maybe Hansen Yang can get to the level of like a Thomas Bryant type of guy, like if you leave him wide ass open, he'll shoot it, he'll make it. And that's good enough when you're literally as good as Young is at everything else on the courts. And then his last weakness does say athleticism. He might have issues transitioning into the NBA just because it's a whole different speed and strength than in China. But I do want to note at the combine, he recorded a max vertical leap of 30 inches, which is the same vertical leap of Maluach, Derek Queen, Danny Wolf, some of the other bigs that will be taken in the first round. So it's not like he's at a huge deficit in terms of verticality at the very least. So as far as his fit on the Miami Heat, well, I think he can be a great trade back candidate. I don't know how many additional assets we would get for that, because we'd be going from pick number 20 to some pick in the early 30s. So we'd only be sliding back about 14 to 15 spots maybe. But considering the Heat don't have a lot of assets as is, I'll take any extra picks we can get, whether it's a future first or a couple of seconds. I don't think that can hurt at all. Or if the Heat were to, let's say, trade Khalil Ware for Kevin Durant, maybe because of Ware's value, the Heat would now be able to keep this pick. And if pick number 20 comes and Maxime Reynaud, Danny Wolf, Thomas Sorber, if those guys are off the board, well, maybe the Heat decide to trade back, get those additional picks, and now you draft Hansen Young as your Khalil Ware replacement, at least in terms of position. Because this Heat team will need rebounding, and that's what Young is elite at right now. I think he's a great developmental prospect in terms of his upside because of the size and the passing and potential to be a stretch big in this league. For all those reasons, he has maybe the most potential out of anybody in this draft. That could hurt the Heat's case if they get Durant, because in that scenario, you probably would want a more older, established, ready-to-win now type player. And by no means is Hansen Young the most finished product. But even if they don't get KD, I wouldn't mind drafting Hansen Young just because of that upside. Right now, the Heat have nobody who's physically imposing. And I think that could be very helpful as this game kind of transitions back to the two big man lineups that we're seeing now. It's not as much small ball. Teams are starting to get a little bit bigger. So Heat will need a guy of their own of that kind of size. He could probably play a little bit right now anyways, just because of that sheer size. I don't see any reason he can't play 10 minutes a night to be a rim deterrent and get some rebounds, but he'll be a guy that I would love to get in the Heat developmental staff. Overall, I don't think Miami will be that good a team next year, at least as is, if they don't get Durant or don't make any moves. So I've always been in favor of drafting a guy with the highest upside, and not many guys have a higher upside than Hansen Young. But let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. If you were not familiar with him before, what do you think of him now? Do you think the Heat should potentially take a look at him maybe early in the second round? Make sure to like the video and subscribe, because I'm on the grind to hit 8,000 subs, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.